There's no easy way to say this. Guess I'll say it to your
I'm
face.
here today for another episode of Thundersmiths Drumspiration, and this time it's actually nothing to do with drums, funny enough. I'm joined by Mr. Alan Savill. Now, most of you will know him as the man behind Savfest, and obviously he's a man of many talents and many other things, which we will touch upon a bit later. So, evening, Alan, how are we?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. I'm all right. All good here. Busy,
Have you
but
got the
that's how we
heating on
like.
yet? Have you got the heating
Pardon?
on yet or not?
No, I've got my Savfest USA 2 shirt, sweatshirt on. I think I'll probably get about another 4 layers before the heating goes on.
Good, you're one of those people. I think we put
Yeah,
it on for the first time today for about half an hour. I think we've got a sort of slightly new build house, like 95 built. You turn it on for about 20 minutes, turn it off, and it's quite warm. But yeah, I'm like you, I'm layered up. I think got my road crew, hoodie on, and but yeah,
nice.
it's and I've got the coffee with me today. I've got the coffee, nothing hard, just a bit
Well,
of a bit of Nescafe with a bit of chocolate powder in it.
oh,
Living
well
the
done.
lifestyle.
Well done, you. Yeah,
So
real rock and roll, man.
So, I mean, like I said, for those that don't know you really that well, Alan, do you want to sort of give yourself a bit of an introduction to people?
My favourite subject, myself.
Good.
No, I'm only joking. Yeah, hi everybody. My name's Alan. I run Savfest, but there is a reason why we do it. Quite a serious reason, really. In 2012, 3 days before Christmas, my son, who was 23, took his own life. Had some mental health issues caused by trauma, which we weren't even aware of until 6 months before he died. Let down by services, as so many people are. Promised the world. And so he succumbed to his mental health, and I think we could have gone one or two ways. I could have probably become quite ill myself, but I made a conscious decision to set up a charity called Ian's Chain, which is ianschain.co.uk. We were first set up, Ryan, to try and help people after suicide. So we realised there wasn't really that much help, or a lot of the help, it wasn't really constructive, it wasn't proactive, and it wasn't kind of celebrating people's lives. So we set that up, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. People contacted us because they were in crisis, and so we kind of took on that mantle as well. So because I was on the radio at the time, people from America were contacting us, people from here were contacting us, and so we're kind of specialists in keeping people alive, up until 6 o'clock this evening, when it's gone up. 154 souls who were literally thinking about suicide, we've saved. And if you kind of multiply that by the amount of people who get affected by a suicide, they say it's about 175. That's about 27,000 people we've helped in 10 years. So that's kind of what Ian's Chain was about. But like a lot of little charities, and we are tiny, we always need funding. There's not a lot out there. And so we set up Savfest. My son loved his metal. And he's quite well. You've been a drummer, all quite exciting stuff. So one of my really good, very close friends is Nikko from Iron Maiden, since 1988. So Ian knew him. Nick stayed at our house and what have you. And so we had this love for music, love for metal. So we went to Motörhead together, Maiden so many times. He loved his Slipknot, he loved all Metallica and what have you. So I thought it'd be very fitting to put something together which he kind of would have liked to be involved in. So we set up Savfest. The first one was in a place called the Sound House in Leicester. We had about
Yep.
50 people or something. You might have even played there, right? Really tiny little place, lovely. And then it's organically grown. So now it is a 2-day festival at the very lovely Vic here in Colville, which you guys so kindly played for us last year, and it's getting better and better. I literally don't think that there's any festival's got a better lineup for next year. We put in bigger PA, probably a little bit too big, but hey ho. There's 2 stages, so nobody is overlapping. We have got Pete Malley as one of our patrons, does the comparing as ever, so that's always good fun. And it's just a really good couple of days. It's outstanding music. You guys are back next year for many reasons, as we know. Hot One 2 are back, but we try to keep it. We try to keep it fresh. So we're looking for new talent all the time, and people said, "Oh, have you tried this band? Have you tried that?" So that's where we are. We're next August, I think it is. 2 days, a Friday and a Saturday. You've got camping in the back. You've got a hotel over the road. You've got other hotels about, and it's about 26 quid. So it's all about the message as well. So I normally do a little bit of talking. We normally have survivors of possibly domestic abuse or something talking about something. But it's not a dour festival, as you know. It's got that brilliant vibe to it, and everybody is there. When I talk or when everybody else talks, it goes quite quiet and people listen and get quite emotional. So that's us really. We're slowly getting bigger. Possibly the last year. Next year at the Vic, we might be looking at making it a bit bigger, but the message is out there: never give up hope. You can still have fun if you've lost somebody to suicide, and we're out there. So that's kind of where we are really. So it's a real pleasure to put it on. It's not easy, like herding ducks sometimes, and it's quite admin wise. It's quite difficult. I always say it's going to be my last one, but it never will be.
Yeah, I say it's not going to
So
be your
that's
last
really
one
good.
until you've cracked Wembley, probably.
Oh my God, I don't know, mate. I don't know. I mean, what I would really love when we did this in Philly, the first time we did it in Philadelphia, Nikko played for us, did some Maiden stuff, and he's just the most amazing person. He shook everyone's hand. He signed everything people wanted for hours and hours. So I'd really like to get Nick to play over here. We've had his son's band play. In fact, his other son's band played in Philadelphia as well. So I don't want to get too big, but I just want it to be safe. I want people to have fun. And, we're very lucky that we had 40, 50 people bought tickets for next year, the day after we finish this year. So I'm really blessed, and everybody who comes, I'm so grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, just on the whole, mental health thing and being safe. I mean, obviously, that, like you said, the music's great, but like you said, the message more or less is kind of the same, and the other things that kind of offshoot from, from the message. I mean, what obviously. When I've read, the Ian Shane website and sort of the testimonials and kind of like, what you're about and what you're saying, obviously the sad loss of your son, the poor communication between the NHS and organisations, which I guess kind of, back then kind of, I say back then, but like mental health charities and organisations and awareness. And I also guess the, what's the word? The infrastructure, I guess, to be able to deal with mental health at the kind of, I guess, the level it's at. Because I guess, mental health problems, in general has always been there. Even you go, to be honest, as far as like World War One, but just kind of recognizing it and the problems before the support that's available now. Obviously, mental health can manifest itself and sort of become what's the word? Just exponentially bigger than the person who's trying to deal with it. And then, not saying it leads to suicide, but suicide is one of the things. If you can't deal with it and there's no one there who can support you, then it's like when the world gets a bit too big and you just can't deal with anything anymore, kind of. So obviously it's there is, I personally still think there's, I'm not going to quantify, but there is a stigmatism still around mental health, like there is going off subject, like there is in homosexuality in music or sport or whatever. It's like it's quite a shocking thing if you hear so and so footballer or America or someone, I go rugby players come out as gay. Well, it's such a manly sport. How can anyway? So it is still kind of shocking, because I guess like kind of some people think, well, how bad is it that you've kind of got to think of suicide? I mean, just for example, my wife knows about this. Last year, about March time, I really did have those thoughts quite constantly.
Yeah,
You know, I had a sort of I'd started a new job, and it was a very poisonous environment, and kind of just a multitude of things, finances, well, you know, just kind of snowball into this massive kind of boulder, which kind of, you know, at the time, you know, for me anyway, it kind of just got a bit too much to handle, and kind of you start thinking of kind of like almost like you think of ways out. You think, oh, how's this can, you know, if I do
yeah,
this, you know, this will end it. Well, it's like, I'm not saying thankfully, because some people don't, but kind of, I guess, strength, courage, whatever. The kind of, I guess, logic, because like, right, okay, I've got a wife, got 2 kids, got lots of friends, got a band, all those kind of thing. Well, if you did this, right, if you ended it there and then, you know, what would you be leaving behind? And also,
yeah,
you know, how would, you know, say for example, how my wife and kids, how would they struggle, you know, single parents. So,
yeah,
you know, and that's quite a difficult thing. It's like kind of having not, it's not even the ability, I don't want to say that, but kind of the will, yeah, I guess the strength to kind of almost reason with yourself. Anyway, cut a long story short, you
yeah,
know, that's why I went through last year. I've had therapy, counselling and stuff, 'cause I lost my parents a while ago, you know. So, but
yeah,
do you know what? I found, you know, therapy's great, counselling's great, obviously two different kind of mental, sort of emotional approaches. But I've always found, yeah, having my family, great. But in the absence of my parents, I don't really think I spoke to my parents about depression. Do you know what? I don't think I did.
no,
Again, the whole stigmatism thing.
yep,
I find having the friends that I do, that kind of support network of friends, that's really, to be honest, helped me get through everything, and kind of, you know, that's to say service, but you know, friends are kind of free to an extent. So that's
yeah. I
really
mean, you
helped.
do
But
find out, Ryan, where your true friends are, mate, in all this.
well,
And
you
I think
do.
we all have friends, and some people literally don't know what to do. So they think, oh my God, I can tell Ryan's not his normal self, but what happens if I ask the question, you know? And what happens if he says, well, he doesn't want to be here anymore? What do I do?
Mm,
So I'll tell you what I won't do. I won't ask,
yeah,
or I'll just, oh, you're all right. Things will get better, mate. And off I trot. And this is kind of what you've hit the nail on the head. There are some people, all they want is they want things to change, but they become suicidal. But then when you actually break it down and when you ask them the question, you know, do you want to die? Do you want to take your own life? They say, well, I just want things to change. And that's quite easy to kind of um, to kind of help. It's the people who say, yeah, they do want to die. We have people panic and think, oh my God, I've got to go to save mode. But what we need to do, we need to validate that. We need to say, well, it's okay, you know, it's okay to feel like that, and then we can kind of break it down. But it's that stigma, you know. I mean, I have t-shirts which says the word suicide on it. They're very good at it in America, actually. The American
yeah,
Foundation for Suicide Prevention got the word suicide. And I remember going to when I was helping people. They said, oh, I don't like that shirt. So why don't you like my shirt? So it's got that S word on it. I said, well, what word is it? And they were like, well, I can't say. And unless we start talking about it, and unless we have brave people like yourself who have got the courage to talk out about it, it's always going to be hidden. And there's no stigma to having a mental health issues. I was diagnosed with bipolar 38 years ago, something like that, about 38 years ago, when I was like 20, 21. And I fought it and fought it and fought it. And I didn't want to sell anybody. But now, you know, 3 years ago, my brain went into this hypo arousal state, which my body shut down. And I was just like, "Oh, okay." And I can't even remember getting from my house. So what happened basically is I was here on my own. My wife was away at her daughter's, and I was on the computer. And it was a time when I was really creative. So I like doing creative things at the evening. And I did the old save, and the old black screen of death came up on my computer. So a bit of a panic. Oh, who shall I ring? She was incommunicado. Got another computer out. Oh, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. Obviously, after turning it off, turning it back on again, and it all went wrong. 4 hours later, I woke up cold. So it was 3 years ago, actually. This 3 years ago. This week, woke up cold, and I was actually on the railway line. 10 miles away. I cannot to this day remember how I got there. Luckily, I felt cold. So I went to the car, like in kind of this autopilot, put on the radio. A CD came on. It was Springsteen, I See You in My Dreams, which is quite poignant, actually.
yeah,
And I suddenly thought, I don't know how I got here. I went home. I had a stroke that day, actually, so my eye was paralysed. Blah blah blah. But I'm all right now, and I was really worried about it. But then I spoke to a psychologist, and she said you went into this hypoarousal state. So normally you can deal with things. People deal with stress pretty well, and then we either go to that fight or flight
Yeah.
mode, or if things get really bad, you go to this hypoarousal state, and that's when I think a lot of people take their own lives because and we see it, don't we? We're so out of character. What did we miss? Sometimes we don't miss anything, but we will miss less if we get more and more people are willing to look after their friends. If there is a difference, if they see something, they're acting slightly differently, that is normally communication, right? But we don't know how to say it. So then if we see that somebody's not acting right, you ask the question, you get them to start talking, and you look for all these little words about hopelessness and, nobody will miss me and what's the point and all that. And then we ask the question, are we talking suicide? If we can get everybody in this country to do that, we're going to be in a lot better place, because there are so many people, all they want is someone to listen to. But you're very lucky. I mean, I know the people in your band who would have come and reached out to you, and they're quite remarkable. You're a remarkable group of people, actually. So I really see you as a pivotal part of Savfest, really. But you're exactly right. You've got to pick your right counsellors. You've got to pick your right charities. My son was let down by a charity. He wasn't contacted back for months and months, and something quite traumatic happened to him when he was 15, and so he had that courage, but nobody contacted him back. And if you don't get contacted back, or somebody asks you something and they miss those messages, well, it's another layer to your stress, another layer to your anxiety, and that's what we're
Mm.
losing people, mate. So fair play to you, because there's no stigma in being ill, and people would talk about it. If you had, I don't know, an illness, fibromyalgia or
Yeah.
whatever, people talk about it,
Yeah.
but they don't want to talk about the mental health. And men are the damn world's worst, because we're hunter gatherers, and
Mm.
we've got to break that down. We've got to say to people, look, there are people out there, A, have been through it, and B, pick your right ones. So what you're saying is 100% spot on, mate, and well done to you.
I think the thing is as well also is obviously everyone's different, emotionally, mentally sort of programmed differently, and I think
Mm.
obviously everyone's got their own way of dealing with things. Not everyone deals with things the same. But like I said, everyone's brains wired differently. So you could
Yeah,
have, say, two people who are going through, say, bereavement or whatever, and person A and person B will have different ways of kind of justifying or reasoning the way they think. And like I say about men, I don't know, I'm not speaking for obviously all blokes, but I think some of it, like say mental health, is say like I don't know, like a bit of a pride thing. Like
yeah,
I would admit I'm not like an alpha male. I'm not aggressive. I don't know what I am, but I'm not an alpha
yeah,
male. Um, but I'm very emotionally open, probably a bit
mhm,
needy. Like my wife would agree that I'm emotionally needy. She's the same. That's why we kind of clicked. Um, but yeah, I'm very open with my emotions. Like
yeah,
if someone asks me if I'm feeling all right, if I'm not feeling all right, I genuinely will say that I'm not all right. But again, like you said, you pick
good.
your kind of counsellors. Like, if you said every day that you weren't feeling all right, and you said, like you say, you go to work 5 days a week, and every day said, no, I'm not all right, not all right. You kind of people probably get annoyed, and probably also you'd probably get annoyed because you think, well, why am I not all right? It's kind of
Yeah,
sometimes you've got to try and alert yourself, which again is a very difficult thing, why
yeah,
you're not all right. And like I said, some people pick up on, like you said, things you say, the way you behave, and this, that, and the other. And then people just be like, you okay? And that's the thing, whether you're thinking about suicide or not, being a friend, just sort of, as the job description, as such, is asking, if your friends are okay, even if they look fine. That's the thing. Even if they look fine,
yeah,
you should you should still ask. And that's the thing. I think with say blokes or people is, like I feel like this. I don't know how much of the time, but I don't want to burden someone with, like, if someone's having a really good day, I don't want to tell them about my crap and drag them down. That's how I kind of feel. So
yeah,
that's why sometimes it gets missed, because individuals don't want to talk about it. They don't want
yeah,
to bring someone down. You know, like you said, it's the thing is you will tell one person about how you're feeling, you know, really bad, blah blah, and
Yeah.
that person will take you under their wing and they'll be, oh, you know, let's talk about it. And another person, I don't think another friend wouldn't care, but they just genuinely, some people aren't emotionally and mentally equipped to be able to process that
Exactly.
kind of stuff, and that's
Yeah.
and the thing is that is okay. That is completely okay, you know,
Mm.
because it is quite, you know, it is a delicate thing. Like I said, it's that, you know, you
Yeah.
can't use the same broad brush on mental health. You can't brush everyone with the same one. So, like I said, the way I see, you know, it's part of me. You know, I don't want people to tread on eggshells. People know I'm sensitive and shit like that. But the guys were like, look, stop being an idiot, stop being a dick or whatever. But yeah, it's like I think some people, like I said, use like their guard up. They kind of cover themselves in a almost like a security blanket, you know, which
Yeah.
often is kind of what's the word? It's like a faux blanket, you know. It's like
Yeah. It is, yeah.
it's not real leather, it's faux leather, you know. And it's just kind of people use that to kind of cover themselves because they don't want to feel embarrassed or, you know. And you know, and sometimes your depression becomes but it's like a shadow, you know.
Yeah.
It's almost like a shadow you don't want to admit it's there, you know, like you've
Mhm.
got another friend, but the thing is that shadow becomes part of you, and that's it. And then eventually you just walk through life with that shadow, which is okay. But it's like learning how, say for example, for me, depression is having depression or blah blah blah, you know, is fine,
Yeah.
but it's learning how to it's like you're trying to control a erratic
You
dog.
got to
You
recognise
want
it,
to
mate.
control the depression. You don't want the
Yeah.
depression to control you. And some
Yeah.
days it works, and sometimes it doesn't. It's like some
Yeah. It
days you
does.
wake
Yeah.
up you feel good, other days you wake up you feel rubbish. Don't know why. I mean, some things for me are circumstantial, but it's I don't know what the charity is. Their symbol is like a dog, black dog, or something. And basically their
Yeah. Yeah.
slogan is it's okay to not be okay, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, and that's it. It's fine.
It is what it is,
You
isn't it?
know.
You know, the brain's so complex, Ryan, and I still get down. I try not to, you know, because I'm very grateful that I'm still here, and especially after what happened 3 years ago. And so I live every day with. I'm not spiritual or anything. I'm just really happy. So my wife would probably sound a bit like Tigger. So I'm bouncing around, bit of a nuisance, really.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy that I'm still here. But I know when things getting on top of me, and I've got that recognition. So I'm probably a bit like you, thinking, right, okay, I know what I need to do. So if I'm out with friends and stuff, sometimes I say I just need 20 minutes on my own, and I go for a walk, or sometimes I say I don't want to be on my own, and my friends recognise that. But I fully appreciate there are a lot of people who haven't got wonderful friends like that, or they've probably reached out and it might be the wrong time for someone to say, "Oh, pull yourself together." Think, things, kind of, things could get worse. But this is your personal journey, and
Yeah.
I've had people who have used our service because they had a guinea pig died. Because it was a loss, it was a further loss. And I've had people, and for some people, you might think, well, God, it's a guinea pig, get over it, go and buy another one for £12
Mm.
from wherever. But to them, it was massive. And you've got to appreciate that, even if you go to a psychiatrist, one psychiatrist will think something completely different to another one because it's very subjective. So
Yeah.
the only person who really knows what's going on in here is yourself. But if you get overwhelmed with it, or you have reached out and it's, oh, here we go, it's Ryan again, oh, it's Alan again, and they avoid you, it's a matter of finding the people who will never not avoid you. I'll ask a question because they genuinely want to hear. Because I think we all say, "Oh, you're right, mate." At the I'm show me age. I was going to say at the fax
Yeah.
machine, at the
No.
photo. Oh my god, at the fax machine, and but they don't really want to know the answer. So I say to people, if you're not equipped or you aren't emotionally stable to ask those questions, and then stick with someone if they say, "Well, actually, I'm in the worst place I've ever been," don't ask, but mention it to someone else and say, "Well, I'm not quite. I don't really know. There's something wrong with Ryan. There's something wrong with Alan. You probably know him better than me, or you've got a better rapport." And go and tell someone or do something, because the last thing you want to do is to think, "Oh, I don't want to get involved and there's a tragedy," because you'll never forgive yourself.
Mm.
But you've got to be aware of your own abilities. Now, I will ask people all over the place. I'm probably so sensitive on this, and and people say, "Oh God, how did you know that?" Oh, and I said, well, I just got this feeling, so I'll ask the question. And that's kind of what our kind of mantra is: ask the question and stand by someone. Because they're either going to say yes or no, and people don't want to think, oh, God, what happens if I say, what happens if I've asked about suicide? I'm going to put the notion in their head. Well, you're not, right?
Mm.
Because, and what I say to people, so I am doing this in 2 weeks' time at the National Facilitator Awards. So I'm up for 2 national awards. I will say to people, and I can say it to you, right? So
Yeah,
you're a drummer, so I know how expensive drums are. If I asked you to close your eyes, visualize your your drum kit all set up and everything, got you to open your eyes and say, you know what, Ryan, could you just deliver that drum kit to my house? You're going to say no. So you're not going to put you're not going to put the notion of suicide in someone's head if you ask them.
yeah,
So if you, and the only thing they're going to do, they're going to thank you, because if you've got the balls to say to someone, "Are we talking about suicide here?" and they say, "Well, no, it's not that bad," they are not going to slag you off. They're going to think that you're this amazing human being who actually genuinely cares. And I actually think most people do genuinely care. I think most people are decent people, and they don't want to see people suffer. Um, and but the actual, that training is quite easy to do. um uh, but you have to have the balls to actually ask those questions, and it's hard, because I used to have like one of them watches, which is like a smart watch,
yeah,
and I know my heart rate goes up when someone phones our charity, our
yeah,
helpline, and I still get that. And I've saved 150 people's lives. So it's a difficult thing, but we need to kind of practice it. We need employers to kind of look to try and encourage training and make the workplace a suicide safer place for everybody. But I'm also aware that not everybody is going to be suicidal, and everybody's mental health goes up and down. It's
yeah,
only as good as a brown envelope. It's only as good as a crappy email from a manager who's a bit of a dick, and you're thinking, and it's only as good as a loss in the family, or a pet, or loss of self-esteem, or you have a bad gig, or blah blah blah.
yeah.
And we go up and down, and it's a matter of thinking, okay, I can cope till I'm here. If it's above that and I feel as though I'm overwhelmed, I need to get help.
Mm. And that's the admitting that you need help. Again, not the whole it's okay to be not it's okay to not be okay. Like I, was like that's fine. So like I've been taking tablets, antidepressants, whatever, since about 2015. Mum died in 2006. Dad died in 2013. Months later, my wife's mum died, etc. We'd only been together for a few months, But anyway, that's kind of not so irrelevant. But neighbour we had at the time, she'd lost her husband, and she was taking antidepressants for a while, I think she'd mentioned it to me because my wife had mentioned it to her, or whatever. And she was like, why don't you want to take the tablets? And I said, well, I kind of want to. And again, it wasn't like a male thing. It was just kind of like, I want to be able to kind of say fix myself, but I want
Yep.
to be able to manage myself without medication, because I thought, well, surely. And the thing is, like you said, it's like if you've got a cold, some people don't take medicine away, but if you've got a cold or well, you got to take a tablet to make yourself feel better. So again, same
Yep.
principle, but it's just to kind of balance the kind of imbalances in your brain.
Yep.
And I've gone through various antidepressants, and I don't look back like I'm glad I say glad I'm on them, but they do make a big difference.
Yep.
Will I ever be antidepressant free? Don't know. You can wean yourself. It's just one of those things. Like, well,
Yeah.
I've noticed when I've missed two because I've run out or whatever, and I've noticed my mood and just mentality changes. Like, right, okay,
Yep.
you're not ready to kind of to go from anyway. So yeah, admitting you need help is,
Yep.
I think that's almost kind of the first step, or one of the initial steps, because
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't admit that you need help, you go right. Well, if you admit you need help, then the second thing's almost like, well, where do you get help? So, and
Yep.
obviously you need CBT and all these different things online, well-being, wellness, reading and
Yep.
podcast and all that stuff. So yeah, admitting you need help, but also accepting help in whatever form
Yeah.
it comes in. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Again, it's not a weakness, because we're only human, and
Yep.
we haven't got all the answers. We're not Superman. It's like, oh, I can't remember it was CBeebies or whatever, and I can't remember who was narrating. And basically, what the narrator had said, it was about a superhero, so like Superman, but it was about a superhero who got really sad and didn't know how to use his superpowers. And effectively, what it was is like, even superheroes get sad, and there's
Yeah,
a.
I like that.
What was it? There's I don't know if it's a charity, but there's a slogan. It says "Boys get sad too." Or so. Anyway,
Yeah, I
so
was going to
and that's
wear
the
that
thing.
shirt.
Even it's just like you said. There's all these different things out there which kind of sort of say try to make the whole mental health.
There's a lot of great things out there, and I've got that Boys Get Sad. And I remember it was really interesting what you said, because I wore it. I was doing a talk at a school, so my background's quite varied. So I was like, I used to work with firearms cops. I was a dog handler, so I trained to do all this sort of abseiling stuff with helicopters and all that. Bear in mind, I'm absolutely hate heights. And so they thought, oh my God, he's like some big superhero, roughy tufty. And I said to these youngsters, so these about 15 or 16, I said, okay, so we did like hands up things. So they come from Leicester City. So of course they were all crowing about winning the Premiership and all that type of stuff. So we put their hands up for that. And I said a question, I said to them, okay, right, let's just do for the boys only. Oh, girls, first of all, how many of you have cried in the last week? So of course it must have been a bad week for Hollyoaks or something. And most of the girls put their hand up, and I said, right, all the boys put your hand up. They put their hand up. I said, right, okay, keep your hand up if you cried.
Yeah.
All down. And I kept my hand up, and they were like, what, you? I said, yeah, I cried because I thought about my son, and like you, I miss my parents, and my parents aren't here, and I cried. And so then I asked the question at the end. I said, how many of you boys have cried? And there were hands went up. So that's kind of, we need to get young people to be able to talk about their emotions and how they feel, which kind of dovetails into my day job, really, about reducing parental conflict and stuff. And there's a lot of work being done now with youngsters and talking about feelings from a very, very early age, 4 or 5 years old, actually. They're looking at neurological theory and stuff for children, which is really exciting. And you've got 2 children, so it's really exciting that kind of ideas about, because little children will tell you when they're sad, and then they don't. Boys, especially when about 9 or 10, there's an expectation you've got to be a man, and we still have people. I had somebody, I don't know if this is on track or not, but I had somebody who his dad died, and the police officer said to him when he was 10, you're the man of the house now. Well, he's a 10-year-old. He needs to be a child. He doesn't need all that. And that was a massive burden on his shoulders from 10. He got to about 24, 25. And he said, I've had this because I couldn't protect my mum because I was 10 years old.
Yeah.
So I felt as though I'd let people down. So there's a lot of work at the moment by saying to children, don't worry if you're sad. Tell your friends if you're sad. Tell them what they've done if they called your names, upset you, or it hasn't given you. Because other children will react accordingly, because little children actually will think, oh God, I didn't mean it like that, and they'll apologize and we move on. So there's a lot of thought processes out there that we need to kind of just have that ability to say I need help. But I'm the world's worst, really. I can speak to Wendy, my wife, I can speak to my mates, but there are times even now when I don't say, and then I regret it later on, because then it becomes bigger than it should have been. And so I'm kind of preaching to people to say talk, but I actually know how difficult that can be. Or it could be a time when I am on my own. So although I go riding, so I go motorbiking every year for about 4 or 5 days on my own. That's as maximum I can do. I couldn't be on my own any longer. So I normally ride out to Belgium or something like that this year, I think, on my own. And after that, I start to struggle, because I kind of think I need people around me. So I don't think it's emotional needy. I have a recognition of where I want to be and where is my safe space. And it's being around other people who know me, really. But yeah, it's a complex thing, that brain.
Yeah, it's complex, annoying at times. You can think, but like I said, everyone's wired differently. Everyone's made differently, and that's what makes, I don't know, being individual. But yeah, like I said, there's no. That's the thing. I'm a big believer in logic, and not the audio recording software, but logic as in a mental process.
You're
you
such a
know, and
muso, aren't you? I have no idea what logic meant, mate, there. That
so
literally proved it.
but like you know, some things, not everything's black and white, but usually when something, I don't know, biological, scientific, when something occurs, something happens, when there's an end result, like when you put you know, a positive and a negative,
Yep,
you know, together in a magnet, it connects. Why does it connect? It just does. It's kind of, you know, it's a very matter of fact thing. And
yep,
it's kind of, sometimes I feel, you know, with the brain, and it's like some things are, I find, logical, and that's how I find, you know, that I can reason with myself and things, and other things you can't explain. And
yep,
sometimes, you know, getting yourself in a bit of a, what's the word, kind of like in a bit of a tiz, trying to explain something that is kind of either beyond your mental ability or just it's
yeah,
inexplicable. Sometimes you just got to go, right, that's just how it is. And that's the thing, just people are the way people are, and that's it. There's no, I guess what I was trying to say was, which I just almost forgot, was there's no right or wrong. You know, there's no
no,
black and white with mental health. It's like I said, it's the complex kind of. It's almost like when you get those I don't know, rubber band balls that people spend years kind of making a ball out with,
yeah,
and you know, and it's kind of, sometimes it's just too difficult to unravel. You know, you just got to
yep,
accept that it's a big ball and that's it, and it bounces. But anyway, sort of, not say away from the mental health, but obviously just to touch on it again. You know, obviously what you're doing is great, obviously for the reasons that you're doing it, and obviously the difference you're making, you know, in other people's lives, so they can make differences in their friends' lives. You know, it's
yep,
very, it is very important, especially, you know, I understand, you know, I can get an idea of how difficult it is, you know, by being a small charity and funding and stuff. You know, obviously you rely on donations and things like that, and
mm,
it's difficult because if you think just charities in general, you know, on television, you know, UNICEF or Water, there's hundreds, and it's like I honestly, I think my wife's mum, I think she'd always gift like Water Aid or whatever, but it's like
mm,
it's really difficult to give to every charity. You know,
100%.
you can give one
Yeah,
pence here, but it's just, I know it sounds, I don't know how this is going to sound, but if you wanted to give the average person to give money, it doesn't matter how much, to
mm,
every charity that's about, it's kind of, I think when I think about it, possibly a bit unsustainable. Like, I
it
don't
is,
think
yeah,
you can donate to every, you know, to every charity in the world to make a massive difference. Even like bloody Bono and U2, you know, they give however many to this
yeah,
charity, makes a difference, but it's like, you know, it does it solve it? No, it may
yeah,
be like even like a millionth of a percent, it kind of helps, you know, but it's
yeah.
just,
Oh, there's millions out there. There's millions of charities out there. But the one thing we don't do, we don't spend. Well, we do spend money because we do
yeah, you got
subsidise.
to, yeah,
I don't take anything from it, so it doesn't pay for my phones, doesn't pay for anything. If I had to drive to someone, I don't say, okay, that's £5 of fuel and
yeah,
all that type of stuff. A lot of the time, we do photocopying or whatever we do, it's out of our own money. Because we need it to finance what we need to do. So we're quite frugal on it. I think what sometimes goes against the grain for some charities is when you got CEOs on 2, 3, 400,000 pound a year, and I don't really think you need. Oh, fair play. I mean, someone want to give me 400 grand a year for doing what I do of happy days. Um, but you know, in reality, I always think, oh God, is that, you know, that's quite a lot of money. I'm not gonna say which charities even have
no,
more than that. But I mean, I think sometimes if you find something which works for you, or you find something which works for a friend or something, they're the ones which I normally uh, give money to. So I kind of give a little bit of money to like lifeboats because my dad always did, and I've got a fear of drowning. That's a kind of, I'm terrified of it. Although I love the water, so I give a little bit there, um, and a couple of other little charities which 'cause my mum had a bad heart and all that. So I do those, but I completely get it. You know, you could be totally overwhelmed with it, and then I think people then start to worry. You know, because I find it very difficult to walk past street homeless people without giving them money
mm,
or trying to talk to them, and I really find it difficult. But I've got the reality that I can't help everybody, and the person, because if you go down that route, Ryan, when you think I've got to give this, I've got to give that, you you're not going to make yourself well, and then of course who's going to look after you? So it's tough. It's tough. It's a shame we need charities out there, you know.
yeah,
But at the moment, my other big fear, I'm not going to get political,
No,
well, I
no.
might a little bit, but you know, but you know, my big fear is being homeless because I don't think I'd survive. And so hence the reason why we help people. But then when we've got a government who are now saying that if you're in a tent, it's a lifestyle choice for people, we've got to worry really, and it's only going to get we're going to got to look out for each other because you know the people at the top aren't going to look out for us. That's the reason why people like you, your podcast, and all other podcasts and people who are talking about this stuff is so crucial to this country, mate.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree. So I'm not going to get political either. Like, I'm not a left wing, I'm not a right wing, but it's just, yeah, you could literally about every government you can moan until the cows come home, but
Yeah,
kind of, you know, unfortunately, in kind of life there is. Unfortunately, just how sort of society and everything's evolved, and
yeah,
even sort of from the dawn of time, there's always been a hierarchy. There's always been
yeah.
there's always been a sort of degree of a class system, and I don't think
I
that
know, mate. I know.
that will really sort of go away. But it's almost like how to sort of, because I like my analogies. It's kind of like like for example, the media, newspapers. Well, don't get me started. The media only tell you what you need to know or what they think you should know. We are
Yeah,
like even now, in a media bubble. Anything outside of that, you don't know. It's almost like
yeah,
you're not allowed to kind of know outside the bubble. And anyway, cut a long story short is, when you get reporters like whole Ukraine war and all that, Russia, it's terrible. But when you get people on the ground, this is the analogy, it's kind of people on the ground reporting, telling you actually how bad it is, you kind of go, oh God, it's like
yeah,
the common man as such, on even like I'd admit I'm working class, because I work, at sort of ground level, that's kind of where reality is. And then when
yeah,
you go to like, I don't know, say your politicians, even like superstars, like your actresses, actors, singers,
yeah,
like the media pressure they're under, where it's kind of, you've got different sort of almost fantastical worlds and reality. And
yeah,
sometimes when you're in that kind of fantastical world, sometimes you do get brought down to earth and realize how bad things are. And that's the thing, I don't
yeah,
personally, I don't think politicians, prime ministers truly understand how bad it is on the ground. They probably get a tenth of how bad it is.
yeah. Absolutely.
But the thing
Yeah,
is, like you're saying about trying to fix the world, say that politicians can't, governments can't, unfortunately, they can't fix everything. You
no,
know, out of 10 things, they could probably make a difference and start changing a few things. I don't think they'll ever really fix it. And it's just, yeah, that's kind of my view. But like, I'm not a politician. I don't envy what they do. I would like what I mean is, sorry, I wouldn't want to do what the prime minister does. And how
yeah,
difficult the decisions they have to make are. So
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
it's interesting when you talk about the media have got the ability to completely destroy people. And one person whose death really affected me was Caroline Flack, um,
yes, yeah,
who I just think is just so beautiful soul and what have you. And they completely pillarized her, and it's very difficult. But that is kind of when you're held at high esteem, and then you hit the ground. We can all do that because we've all got a level of where
yeah,
we're comfortable with. And you're exactly right. They only reported on the things they wanted to report, and they always do it, and they keep doing it, and they keep doing it, and they keep knocking people down. There are some people who need a knocking down a couple of pegs, but they
yeah,
never realize how detrimental it can be to that person. And I'm really blessed, because I kind of I will hop back to Nikko because I'm very lucky. I don't pay to see Maiden. I've seen him over 130 times
wow,
and all that. But Nick's, he's well off. He's got a
yeah,
fantastic family. He's just a genius drummer. Um, but he's always stayed grounded because he's remembered where he came from, but he values people around him. So he will always talk to people. He will always be open and all that type of stuff. And I think that most people want to do that, but it's the people who then hang around them and tell, oh my God, you're just the most amazing thing. You're like this demigod. You start to believe in what other people say. And that's kind of where it goes very, very wrong, And if I hark back to good old Savfest, our tiny little Savfest, there ain't no way we would ever have anybody with an ego come and play our festival, because I don't need it. I don't need that. And how can I put it? We haven't had that many times. In actual fact, people who've then had a bit of an ego, when they actually saw what we do, saw how amazing that festival is and how everybody's into it, they've kind of dropped that bit of a facade,
Yeah.
and they've suddenly thought, wow, yeah, this is grassroots stuff. And I think we can never ever forget our roots. I'm working class like you. My parents were. My parents really, really struggled. And that's kind of, it's really interesting you were saying about loss, because you get your core values and stuff from your parents and what you've been through. And those core values can be very much challenged a lot of the time. So what I would say to anybody actually, when we're on this grief path, is everybody's grief path is different. You have a lot of people, don't you, say, oh, well, you should be over it by now, or time is a healer. Well, time isn't a healer. All it is that you learn to adjust yourself, and it still hurts as much. Still hurts as much a day, when my parents died, and I miss them terribly. So hence the reason I have a picture of them when I do training. It's right there. My mum's looking at me at the moment, and so. That grief path is different for everybody. Everybody's mental health is individual, and we got to see people as individuals. And this is where it goes wrong, mate. Is the NHS see you as a number a lot of the time, and you got to be very, very lucky to get the right help. CAMS, for instance, for young people in certain areas now, it's 4 years waiting list. 4 years to get help. Well, that's crazy, and that's so. Hence the reason why more and more people come to like little charities like us, because they can't find it anywhere else. But I think that we've got to just remember that our brain is like any other muscle. It needs stimulated in the right ways. It needs to rest. It needs to work. But we've got to understand that as long as we're comfortable and we're safe and our families are okay, that's enough. We don't have to strive for the best, for the best, for the best all the time to the detriment of ourselves. But there's so much as social media makes you, you're a failure unless you look like, I don't know, one of the Kardashians, God help us, or you haven't got the right phone, or you haven't got the right bloody trainers, or God knows what else. And it's fundamentally wrong, because that's putting massive pressures on people who don't need that pressure. And I see it all the time. So anyway, I'm on a rant, mate.
No, it's fine. I mean, do you know what? If I wanted to look like a Kardashian and started to look like one, I think my wife would probably run for the hills. So I'm not going to. But just sort of not say to finish this part of the interview. There's one thing. I had this therapist. One of the jobs that I had, and someone put me in touch. Anyway, she was a therapist, but she incorporated like meditation with it and stuff. Some people say meditation's a bollocks, but anyway. And the one thing she said, which stuck with me, and again, it seems logical when you think about it, is I haven't done it for a while, to be honest, probably for months, so I need to start again. Is when you wake up, list a number of things you're grateful for, thankful for, etc., and then close the day with pretty much the same thing. So whether you have a good start to the day or bad, or whatever, you're kind of starting on a positive, ending on a positive. It is, but it is easier said than done. It is very easier said than done. But kind of when you do it, the kind of, it's like you said, your core values, the kind of basic things, like the things we take for granted, like water, air, clothes. It's being thankful for your family and your friends, band, or whatever. But it is really difficult to do, and it's not because I haven't done it for months or whatever. It doesn't mean I'm not thankful. It's just sometimes, work, life, you just kind of get caught up in just life in general, and mean to forget. Like I went to visit my mum and dad where they're buried in Greenford, and that was the first time I'd visited them for bloody 4, maybe 5 years, because having a family takes up time and blah blah blah. And literally, I visited them because I was visiting a customer of mine at the job that I do, who literally was in Greenford, and they literally just down the road. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna pay them a visit, and it was great. It was such a load off my mind, because I was feeling like if my mum and dad, if I hadn't seen them for a while, they'd be like, oh, they'd be disappointed. All those sort
Yeah,
of stupid things that manifest, which kind of, lead to problems. But yeah, being thankful for the things that you should be thankful for, that you take for
yeah.
granted, because I think we probably do take, like I said, air, water, for granted.
Yes, we
Um,
do.
Sorry, go on.
No, so
Yeah,
I quite agree. I think we do, and it brings it back to reality when you realise that the people haven't got those basics. You got to look in the world at the moment. People ain't got those basics, and I look around me and think, yeah, I'm doing all right. So I'm nearly 59, so I'm kind of looking at this future of retiring and all that type of stuff. Be quite nice, and I don't need any more in my life.
yeah,
I kind of thinking it's coming up to Christmas. I think I don't need anything because I've got everything, and I've got, I'm. Well, I'm all right. Yeah, I've had 2 strokes and my heart's not great, but it doesn't really bother me because I've got all I need around me, and I'm very grateful. So I do. I'm like you. I try to think every morning. I'd be grateful for something. So I normally take the dog out and I wander around. It's the same little thing. He needs to do his little. He's empty and all that. And I look around, think of actually quite an amazing world of this. And I'm not spiritual. I don't think like that. I just think, wow. And it's interesting if your folks are in Greenford, so that's kind of over Heston and Hounslow way, isn't it? That's where my family come from. So
it's
all the
sort of
best people
north
come
of.
from over there, mate.
You go through Southall, and you kind of keep going past
Yep.
the hospital, and then you get to kind of Greenford. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Sounds
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yeah,
Southall was where my granddad was. He is like a bit of hero to me. So he was First World War, and then after the First World War, because he joined when he was 15, then he got grassed up by his mum and got taken out. 15, he was at the Somme, came back. And then when he was on his 60th birthday, went back. And anyway, cut a long story short, he worked at Southall Gasworks. It was gasworks then, and
yeah.
he would have 5 days off a year. He would stoke coal every single day for 40 years. And it makes people, those were hard times. A lot of people nowadays think it's hard times if they've got to cancel Netflix because they can't afford it. They don't really understand how lucky we really are as a nation. And as long as you've got those basics, as you said about Ryan, we're doing all right. Don't pressurize yourself and just be grateful and look around you. And if you've got a family, just be grateful that your family are there, really. Because I kind of think that. I mean, I miss my son every day, right? And he was a bit of a rebel, really, but we kind of understand why. And I would dearly love him to be here, but he isn't. So I make the most of what I've got.
No, absolutely. Just obviously talk about Savfest. So you said Savfest. Well, number one, that was in Philadelphia. Was that right? If I remember the name.
Well, number one was over here, and then we've done 5 in Philly.
So tell me, how did that? So how did yeah
How did Philly happen?
how did Savfest in the States? How did that kind of
Oh well,
come about?
I was on certain radio stations. So I was on TBFM. Actually, before that, I was on like a local radio. So I used to do like a Friday night, 6 hours, and it was like one of these normal stations, where they put on.
Yeah.
Oh God, they would have had Adele and all that. Well, unlucky for me, I would have had the Outlaw Orchestras. I had a
Mhm.
load of all the way through the night, and then somebody then heard me. I don't know how they heard me, and they said, "Oh, do you want to? You should." Hear this band Faith or Fear, who were in Philadelphia, who were magical. So I interviewed them, and things just grew and grew and grew. So organically, a lot of the bands in Philly, they've got a really good sort of metal and rock scene over there. Was sending me stuff, and I'd play the stuff. So when it was 3 o'clock in the morning here, it was like 9, 10 at night there.
Yeah.
So I had quite a big listenership. Then I went to TBFM. Then I went to HRH for a while, and so it grew and grew and grew. So they said that they wanted, when Ian died, they said they wanted to put something on. And obviously Nick lives in Boca Raton in Florida, so I asked him to come up, and he said yes. So we did the first one at an amazing place called Dobbs. So Dobbs in Philly was one of these clubs you guys would, bands over here would love it. So that is where Green Day, first time they played in Philly, were. The Ramones, Iggy Pop. Who else had been there? All of those type of bands were there. It's had so much history. It's unbelievable. and I don't think the actual toilets have ever been cleaned since the Ramones were there because it was quite scuzzy. But it was in an amazing part. So we did it there for 3 years, I think, until that closed, and they wanted us back and back and back. So it was kind of if you could transport Savfest here over there, it's the same people who came, the same mentality, the same people who had lost loved ones, and just wanted to feel kind of uplifted, really. I mean, we haven't been back for a while, because we wasn't there when you played this year, but our very dear friend and a patron of ours, tattooist Stacey Black, had a massive heart attack last year, and nearly died. Well, he should have died, really, and so we haven't been able to put it back on. But I'd love to do another one. I quite fancy doing one in Florida actually. So forget Philly, go down warmer and play at Rock and Roll Ribs with Nikko, because I know we'd put it on. So watch your space.
Well, I've heard of I've heard, because there's a festival we've done a few called Rock and Ribs, and I was like,
Yep.
same festival but in the US. But yeah, you need to do like obviously logistics, admin, finances, whatever. Do like a Savfest, say world tour, but sort of take
We
like
should,
kind of like the Savfest roadshow, but take it on the road, or
yeah.
it's doable. It's doable.
Well, it would be. I mean, we had the band. Well, I can't remember if they were on your day or not. Twisted State of Mind, who played this year, right? So they reformed. So they went over. With a band called Slander, came over to us at Philly on the first one, and they were 13 years old. Blew Nikko away. Nikko tried to sign him on Sanctuary on the spot, right? Or not on the spot, because he wouldn't have that. He wouldn't have, but he told the people, powers that be. Now all these little kids who went over, they were 13. So Ben was about 5'2". He's now 6'4", covered in tattoos, in a band called the Mez, who are just doing magnificent things. But we had Twisted State of Mind. They came back, so they were brilliant over there. Were really well liked. I think they came back a second year. I can't remember top of my head. So it's very doable. I mean, people wanted to play, and they made it into a holiday. So they came over, played, borrowed a lot of kit, really, to be fair, played over there, and then disappeared off and did a few days over there. But they're really fascinated over there by English bands, because they know that we've got this history, and so they really embraced us. And they quite like our accents as well. It's like, oh my God, can you say something? Do you know the Queen? Oh, not now, but do you know the King?
Yeah.
I thought, well, we're not that small. Do you know what I mean? So watch your space. But I think I quite fancy doing a Savfest, going to where all the bands come from. So rather than everyone have to come to us, do something down south. I'd like to do something up north as well, and in the middle. But what I don't know how that's going to work out, but yeah, go on a world tour would be lovely, man.
Just get the old whiteboard up and just kind of draft it out.
Yeah, and then realise I've got no annual leave.
Well, so
But
you
yeah, I mean,
spent
we'd
no annual leave
could
for the
you
past
message us
4
and say,
years.
pardon?
You spent all your annual leave for 4 years, and it's like I said, no
Yeah,
holiday
that's
period.
right. I never get out. I'm quite lucky because I can accrue time, so I'm very good like that. But it was a real joy over there, and I remember actually we went to Philly, and they opened our bags as they do, because at the airport, and it was full of our t-shirts. 100 t-shirts, so we carried them over because it was cheaper to get them printed here and take them over on the plane. So we had a bit of a grilling, really, and they're not the happiest people in that airport, to be honest. But then when he realised what I was an ex-cop and what we were doing it for, he completely changed, and we invited him over. I don't know if he came or not, but he wished us all the best. So it's really interesting that even people who've got a job which was really quite tough for him, and you could tell it was a bad day, as soon as you're talking about mental health and everything, he kind of went back to, well, yeah, I can understand where you're coming from, all the way through, and have a wonderful time. So Philly's a great place. It's a great place, and they do something. So are you a beer drinker?
I do like beer, yeah.
Good man. Right, they do a beer which tastes like, oh God, this sounds so awful, it's like liquid, the taste of shredded wheat.
Yeah.
It's like liquid shredded wheat. It's the best beer. It's like a stout. It's the best beer in the
Okay.
whole world. I could see your
What's it
dad. Your
called?
bandmate dad.
What's it called?
I'm gonna find some, man. You can't get it over it. And I just loved it. It was like this stout thing because they do pumpkin. Everything's
Yeah,
Halloween.
I know, yeah.
Mental, and it was over. It was like liquid shredded wheat. It was the easiest drink in the whole wide world until you got up off your stool.
Yeah.
So it's great. It's great. I'd love to be back over there. I'd love to take some bands over, but watch your space.
What was this though? I mean, it's obviously like Savfest. Like I mean, tell me about the first one that happened. Like, tell like how that kind of.
Oh, the first one. Oh God. I mean, it was amazing. So these little guys, Twisted State of Mind, were there. The Almighty Scam were
Yeah.
there, who I just love dearly because obviously it was local to us. It was people. I remember. Oh God, I can't even remember who else played. We had about 5 bands on, and I didn't really know what I was doing. We picked a venue which had a PA. The PA was all right, obviously now for Savfest because we put a bigger one in because I think you guys deserve it. It was really emotional. So I think that was in the year after Ian died, so probably 8 months afterwards. And I just thought, God, he would have loved this, really. And on the first one, there were a lot of friends went there who didn't really like rock music, really, but they weren't really into it. But they were into it because of what the cause was. So they came along and supported it. And some of them have stayed along with us. And then it just kind of organically grown. But I didn't need it to go any bigger. So I just remember we're having great pride on that day and seeing more and more people coming in. And the sound house is quite small, and it was really hot and really sweaty, and I kind of like those gigs because that takes me back to when I was a youngster looking at gigs. And Scam, who have now played I think 3 times for us, that's why we wanted them back this year, is because it was the 10th anniversary of Savfest over here, and we wanted to just say thank you to them because they're an integral part of what we've done, and they've always kept in touch and always been really kind to us and what have you. So yeah, I remember those days very, very fondly. Very nervous if people were going to turn up. Obviously we didn't use social media as much as we did, but what I would like to do is, and I don't know how this will work, right, but I do see you guys an integral part for many reasons, which I'm not going to go into.
No, that's fine. Thank
I
you.
would like to offer, and I don't care how you do this. I don't care if you just put people's names in a hat or anything. Our tickets for a weekend is about, I don't know, for a pair it's about 60 quid, right? If we offer, and you can do it through the band if you want. If we offer 3 pairs of weekend tickets, I don't care if people want to donate or they just want to come along. Because if they come along and have a good time, we'll get them on the merch stand and they'll buy a shirt or they'll buy something or other with us. If I offer you guys through the band, so that's 3 pairs of weekend tickets, do with whatever you want, because it's all about the message, mate. So next year, it will boost the numbers up. I mean, it got pretty hot and sweaty this year, but I'm more than happy to. You can do it however you want to play it with those. But I'd love maybe people who, although that we're in the Midlands, but I'm sure you've got people who would love to come and see you, but things are pretty tight. So if you want to kind of invite people like that as our guests, you're more than welcome. But I'll write it all up, and you can do whatever you want.
No, I think that's it's good. Like I said, it's 60 quid probably doesn't sound like a lot, but I know, in general, people, I think, not it's got to the point for people, but just in some instances, going to a gig, if music is your number one love, going to a gig is sort of become, it shouldn't be a luxury to go and watch your favorite band, but it is. Like, I'm not going to say the band, but there's a band I really love, who I've seen loads of times. I'm probably going to go see him again next year. But anyway, they do like meet and greets, VIP things.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, this is the cost of the ticket. Yeah, that's that's reasonable. Yep. And it was like the VIP thing. It was the price. I was like, why is it that much? So I looked at some things, and I went, Huh, for that much? I was like, blimey. And it's just kind of,
Mm.
if people are struggling to pay 40 quid, say 50 quid,
Yep.
let alone Motley Crue or Def Leppard charging whatever, if you can't afford that, how the hell can you afford this shopping? It was like, but so it's kind of like,
Yeah.
I think maybe gig culture in various parts of the world are obviously say a bit different. But like Maiden, do you know what? Because you mentioned Maiden quite a lot. I think, do you know what? I've only ever seen Maiden once, and it was Reading Festival. And
Mm.
what year was it? 2000.
82.
It was after 2010. I know that. No,
Was it?
was it after?
What,
Because
Reading?
I'm trying to think. It was Reading Festival. So went to uni in 2004. 5, 6, 7. Was it before 2010?
Well, I
God,
don't think Maiden have been at Reading since 2010.
was it that year? I can't remember. I'm trying to think what album was out at that point.
Mm.
And I'm trying to remember who else was on the was there for the weekend. I can't remember, but I've seen them basically once, and I've never seen them sort of act, like in their own sort of gig. And to be honest, I would obviously they're various frontmen etc. But yeah, I would like to see them. But just talking about Main and you talking about Nikko is so I'm endorsed by this drumhead company called Code Drumheads, and they've developed a head for Nikko, especially called the Boomer series. And
Oh, yeah.
I did the UK drum show this year with the guys from Code. One of the guys who heads up, a guy called Mike Heaton, who's a drummer of Embrace. Embrace have been around for quite a while. Great
Mhm.
sort of institutional band. Anyway, they had a cardboard cutout of Nikko, sort of thumbs up like that, and.
Yeah, yeah.
People are, oh, did you meet him on Facebook? So, oh yeah, I met Nikko McBrain. So I was like, here's me and Nikko. He looks a bit stiff. But yeah, they've designed a head range for him, for his to suit his style
Yeah.
and everything. But just in case any drummers are listening, you can't buy them until December. But yeah,
Mm.
Nikko McBrain is a lovely bloke. I've watched various interviews, various drum documentaries, and he's such a happy bloke and such a. I'm not even going to say ordinary because really no one's ordinary. Everyone's extraordinary
Mm.
in their own way. He just seems like such a lovely bloke. Like you said, you could just go and talk to him and say hello, and you'd be fine with it.
You could talk to him about drums all day.
Yeah. So I'm very jealous.
He's just designed a new snare made out of bell brass. Now, I remember when he had the one made from Past Day Maiden one, which was about 10 inches deep, the
Yes. Yeah.
biggest sound ever, and it was too loud to be recorded with, really, but it's beautiful. So he's done this new one through the British Drum
Was it
Company,
the
I think.
Icarus? The Icarus?
I
I think
don't
it's
know.
no.
I don't know.
I think it's called a talisman. Actually, it could be a
Is
talisman.
it? It'd be extraordinary.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember actually when we did the first Savfest in Philly, he gave us one of his drums, signed it, one of his ones, which was one of the Maiden ones from the new series. But he's always so grounded because drums is a massive part of his life. He's so educated about it and so intelligent about his drums. Yeah, he's a special chap.
As long as on the interview, as long as you haven't shit yourself, that's fine. Or if you have,
It
that's
would be
that.
quite,
You know.
yeah, it'd be quite good, wouldn't it? If yeah, it would make for a good list. Well, not a listenership,
No,
but
it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't.
you never know.
I know we're talking about Maiden.
Yeah,
Nikko McBrain being grand. He's got. Oh, it's Manchester. There's a shop called It's not called Nikko McBrain's Drum One, but it's called Drum One, and they've got.
yeah. Have you been there?
I haven't actually. I've been meaning to go there for a while. There's a guy who runs it, a guy called Phil, lovely bloke. Never met him, but
Yeah, he is a
um,
good guy. Yeah,
and I'm talking to him about getting a quote for a British drum company kit because I went out to the drum show, tried a couple, obviously the Nikko McBrain snares and the drums and everything. They're
mm,
great drums, and they're really met the guys who spray the drums and build them,
yeah.
guys called Keith, and they're really really nice bloke, nice people, and like I said, Nico's just a great ambassador for the for the drums. But he's like I said, a lovely bloke, and obviously an incredible incredible drummer. I mean, because the music I grew up with, it wasn't anything like that, to be honest. It was all kind of Buddy Holly, Johnny Mathis, ABBA, The Moves, The Monkees, and stuff like that. But I think, to be honest, Maiden, like AC/DC, Zeppelin, to be honest, I think I got into that sort of stuff a lot later in life. So
Yeah.
2004 is when I went to uni. So maybe about 2006, I started to get into that sort of thing. And I was, what,
Wow.
20s? Yeah, 20 something. Because I was like, when I started uni, into the whole, do you know what the word emo means? Kind of like black eyeliner, black
Yeah,
nail
yeah,
varnish,
yeah.
wet hair, tight trousers, all that stuff. And then kind of, not say grew out of it, well, I did, but you know, the crazy hair. And then yeah, like I said, listen, like all that sort of stuff, Hendrix, and then just my
Yeah.
musical taste. And like I said, you know, the band I'm in now with Dave and Pete, you know, got into sort of my country, because me and Dave, actually, we used to be in a band together called Hazard County prior to
Okay.
the Outlaws, and that was like basically a covers band, you know, doing like George Thorogood, Johnny Cash, ZZ Top, Skinner, you know, that sort of thing. And that's kind of really what got me into sort of country, southern rock. It's quite a funny, but I don't know. It's a story I'm proud of, actually. But basically,
Yeah.
me and my wife were in Cornwall, and I think it's before we had our first child. But anyway, no, it was. And basically, I went to this pub with my wife, obviously then girlfriend, and my father-in-law. And you know, I was like, I fancy a go at that. And I whispered in his ear. I'd had a couple of pints. He'd give me a lift. I said, you know what? I reckon I could do better than that. Anyway, and he's like, oh, go and talk to. It wasn't Dave. It was a guy called Al. So go and talk to him. Blah, blah, blah. And I said, look, I reckon I'd be good at that. So he gave me a business card. Fast forward, however long. Anyway, it was in Cornwall. And then the day we were coming back, I got an email the night before. I was like, do you want to do, you know, a gig? And it was like a 50-song set list, 40 songs or whatever. And I was like, do you know what? Yeah, I'll give it a go. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh, I'm in too deep here. 40, 50 songs. I thought, I can't do this. Because I was like, I knew, like, you know, Ring of Fire or whatever, and Sweet I'm Alabama, all the usual stuff. But I was like, I don't
Yeah.
know half of these stuff. And I was ZZ Top. I was like, oh yeah, I know they did Cheap Sunglasses, but you know. So anyway, rocked up. Had my headphones on in between kind of sets, just sort of familiarizing myself with them.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was really good. And then I kind of said, got into the country stuff from there. And then like I said, obviously Dave and I, you know, in this band now, you know, some lineup changes over the years. And it was just, I sort of surprised myself, because I was like giving it all that, yeah, I can do this. And kind of, funnily enough, I did, not kind of because I was arrogant. I was just like, you know, you put the work in, you do your research and stuff, and kind of
Mm.
you'll be all right. If you turn up and didn't listen to any of the songs, you know, obviously you'd be in deep shit. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got into sort of country. And I mean, years and years ago, I didn't think I'd really be listening to bloody ZZ Top or the Cadillac 3 or whatever. So, but yeah, I mean, to
Well,
put it in
country music is never really. People don't really understand what a diverse kind of genre it is, and there's some really. We went to that country to country thing. I think it was the first year. I can't remember the guy who did. He came on, and it will come to me in a minute. And they did an AC/DC cover at the start, and they were really pretty heavy. And you could see people think, "Oh wow!" But when you actually look at it, their songs as well, they were quite hard hitting, really hard hitting about what he was talking about. You know, it's not all. I know that Outlaw Orchestra likes
yeah,
singing about dogs,
well,
but that's a funny little
yeah,
thing, and Dave and his dogs, bless him. And but I think that country is quite exciting a lot of the time. It's not all, you know, the crops have died and all that type of stuff. It's so diverse that even some of the kind of the older, like the Charlie Rich and those sort of things, are really quite wicked songs when you look at it. And you know, so yeah, I used to be a little bit of, I used to like a little bit of country myself. I'm kind of spread across loads of genres, and I remember when I was playing on the radio, I said, I'm going to play what I want to play, and it doesn't do any harm to kind of throw curveballs in. And you'll be surprised. People say, "Oh, actually, God, what was that? Never really thought." And then, "Oh, I like that." What would you say the genre is? Country? Oh, I don't like country. Well, you either like music or you don't. If you don't like something, you don't like it, you know. But if you do, don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of it. And listen. I know some of the best days you're saying about those days when you kind of, it was all diverse and new stuff. One of my favorite days of the week is Friday. You know, when you get all the new releases on,
yeah,
like
yeah.
Tidal or something. One that I don't like hip hop. I don't get it, but I'm old and so I'm never going to get it. So I'm sounding like my dad, really. But I will listen to anything, and if I like it, I like it. I don't care. So I just put it on favorites, because it's nice to challenge yourself, and there's so much talent out there. and especially in this country, I find I just wish people would go out to gigs again, Ryan. You know, not everything's expensive. You'll go out to your local gigs where it's a couple of pounds to get in, or
Mm.
possibly not even that, and go and expand your mind, because it's extraordinary, the talent out there. And I think it's a great shame for people like yourself, you know, because those venues aren't. When I started going to gigs, so it was 79. My first gig was Whitesnake and Marseille, and then the next one was Motörhead and Saxon, and then it went on and on and on. But the gigs were always packed because we couldn't watch it on YouTube and all that type of stuff. And I did an interview. We know Arthur Brown, you know, the Crazy
Yeah,
World of
crazy
Arthur.
one off.
One of
Yeah,
the most intelligent people I've ever met in my life. And he said to me, he said, you know what? In a few years, it'll be pay to play, not pay to view. Sorry, pay to view,
yeah, yeah,
pay to, pay to view. He said, what we do is you'll have bands on these massive stages, and then you'll pay a bit like a boxing person. They get all the money, they
yeah.
do one off gig, and that's how you do it, and you catalog it. And he's not far from the truth, because it's all on there, and it, you know, you can see so much on YouTube, but you know, nothing beats live music. You can watch it on YouTube, but it ain't the same as getting hot and sweaty and feeling that power, because nothing can beat it. And you know, I think last year, when I remember when you guys came in, and Dave with his and everything, and I know that not everybody knew you guys, and so, but they gave it a listen, and then you're winning people over by that pure power, but that pure joy, and so I feel a bit sorry for young people who don't go to gigs all the time. 'Cause I was always going into London, so I lived in Maidenhead, so I'd get down on that train, I'd get the last train home, and then I'd leg it home
Yeah.
about 2 miles to get back, and I'd always be at Hammersmith Odeon. It was like my second home, and I loved it. And it was those days when you couldn't buy anything online. You didn't have to pay £50 for the privilege of being able to download your own tickets, and you'd have to send off a stamped address envelope and get your
Yeah.
tickets back. It was amazing, and I feel sorry for people who hasn't got that out there. And I always think to people, I always wanted to play an instrument, and I couldn't, and I was going to learn guitar, and I had a stroke, so I couldn't do it really.
Mm.
Um, but if you enjoy playing music, I will give it a go, because it must be amazing feeling when you get that feedback from a crowd. It doesn't even matter if there's 5 people there or 500. If you get that power and people enjoying it, it must be amazing. So that's why at Savfest I always sit at the side of the stage and kind of think, oh, I'm nearly on stage with these guys, because I just think, and I love seeing that interaction with audiences. So, you know, long may it continue for you, mate, because you guys are brilliant.
You got to be. I tell you what, like from my experience of being in bands since about 11, you got to be really careful with London, because obviously I grew up in West London, a place called Acton, which, if no one knows where Acton is, it's kind of almost the end of the Central Line, not far from
Yeah.
Ealing Broadway. I've been in bands. There's one band I was in. We played in Hoxton. And it's like a showcase, because a lot of things are all about exposure. Oh yeah, okay, great, showcase. Blah, blah, blah. There might be industry people there,
Oh
and you
no.
think what you did was you basically buy this. Let's just say you buy 50 tickets, right? You buy 50 tickets at whatever, tenner each, right? So you basically, that promoter is giving you all the risk, basically, and
Yep.
anything you don't sell, the promoter hasn't lost out. If you sell all of it, you get the money back. And it's like there are a lot of pay to play things in London, especially Showcase. It's branded as Showcase, which makes it
Yeah.
sound better than it is. And like in any industry, music, bloody politics, there's always swindlers, so kind of just,
Yep.
if anyone's listening, I'm only 39, so I've not been in the game, 400 years, but just, you're going to play in London, great. London is great. Very kind of heavily saturated, because you'll be playing a gig on a Saturday and there'll be about 40 other gigs happening at the same time. Just
Yeah.
be careful, like, who you talk to. I'd always say, if you're going to play in London, if you're going to go through a promoter you've never heard of or whatever, kind of, you've got to vet them, talk to other bands who maybe done it for the promoter. You'll see all these
Yep.
things on forums. Just be careful, because paying to play, you shouldn't have to pay to play.
No.
What you should have to do, though, and this goes for promoters, like any promoter, by the definition of the word promoter, is someone invests in you, they're going to pay you to play this gig. Great. They're going to promote the event because it's in their interest, sell tickets. But also, as a band, you do need to promote the gig, even the festival, as much as you've maybe got bloody, ABBA have come back from the dead playing, headlining a festival. As much as that alone is going to sell the tickets, it's in your interests to promote it, because fans of yours who've never maybe heard this festival, they'll go to it and they'll tell their,
Yep.
so, it's I don't think there's such a word as symbiosis. I think there's, but yeah, it's a symbiotic thing. It's a two-way thing. You've got to do, basically, you've both got to promote it, because that's how it works. It just frustrates me, because I've done loads of gigs where it's, oh yeah, blah, blah, and just the promoter's done nothing, and I think, really, come on.
Yeah.
And it's like, you've got to pull your weight. It's a two-way
Yeah.
street. Being in a band, and being in a band is difficult. It's tough, it's challenging, it can be expensive, but it's, doing it with the people you care about. You have a laugh, you meet. It's like when we got asked to do a Phil Campbell tour,
Yeah.
and because sadly, there's a guy called Tom Layton, who was the lead singer of a band called Wolf Jaw. They used to be called the Bad Flowers, and he passed away, sadly. And I've met him quite a few times at a few gigs we've done. Planet Rock gig in 2018, Rock and Blues in Derby in 2019. So we got the call in the circumstances. Like you say about country, like metalheads love country. People got confused when they saw a pedal steel and a banjo at a Phil Campbell gig, but and it was really good. I can't remember the point I was trying to make. No, I think I've gone off on a tangent, but I guess kind of the point I think I was trying to make is, it's difficult, but it is a laugh, and it's such a great experience, through like life. There's ups, there's downs, but you do it for the love. But I think the thing I was trying to actually get onto is saying, how difficult it is,
Yeah.
from away from the work you used to do as a copper, putting on a festival for the first time. Obviously, it's got all its challenges. It's got the admin. It's got all the different, planning, supply chain, whatever. Like, just from the festival promoter point of view, what do you think your biggest challenges are in putting on an event, apart from trying to get all
I
the
think,
bands to turn up and play?
well, that's the easy bit, really. Oh my God, I remember, was it this year? I remember everything was going so well, and then someone rang me up and said, "Oh, hi, we're on in an hour." I said, "Yeah, well, we're 90 miles away." The old van's conked out. Do you know what I mean? And so he then, I can't remember what band, they were amazing. So he then contacted his uncle, who was a builder, who then brushed out his builder's van, rushed down there, stayed at the service station with them, and they came down. And so that was easy, because we could just move bands around,
Yeah,
because we kind of, I think the hardest thing is still getting people to buy tickets.
yeah,
And to be fair, this is all, we need to raise funds. But even if I made £100, if the message is out there, I don't mind. But it's getting people to have that understanding that they need to come. And so we start our promotion kind of the week after, if you like, and that's 52 weeks of the year, just 51 weeks of the year, pushing, and having the courage, having the courage to say, right, okay, don't run before you can walk, because we've been offered bigger venues. Someone's contacted us the other week, and there's like 20 acres. I don't want, it's too big for us. And so, learn the ropes and be open and honest with bands. And I think that the biggest challenge for us is, one year, it was only about, it was the venue we're at now, is that their PA and everything wasn't up to what I thought bands deserved.
uh,
And so you've got to be very realistic with that. And you'll probably agree that sound in there was phenomenal this year, but that
yeah,
costs a
great.
good few grand to
Yeah,
bung
cost
on
money.
in.
Yeah,
Because otherwise, especially because the drums didn't used to be mic'd, so it's just crazy, and it's not fair. So I think the biggest challenge is getting people to realise that although that we're a little charity, we try to make it as professional as possible, and we go over and above to make the sound quality the best we can do. So I think people that it's getting people to spread that word and to say, and for us is to think that this isn't all doom and gloom. We can have a laugh. I mean, well, Pete Malley tries to be funny, but
Yeah.
he's on the edge. He's learning. No, he knows I love
And
him.
he's an Arsenal fan. That's the biggest joke.
Well, he is actually, yeah, and that was hilarious. When they lost, and I'm just trying to
Oh, to
see.
Newcastle, because I'm a Newcastle fan.
Oh, you're all right, aren't you?
Yeah, well.
It's all kicking off at Tottenham as well.
Yeah, I know.
It's big fights, and I love it. I'm a Chelsea man, so I'm all right. Yeah, and I kind of think that for us, we just need to let people know that this is a fun gig, and we're all in it together, and people make friends there,
Yeah,
and so
no,
there's all people
absolutely.
saying, "Oh, we'll see you next year," and we don't want it to be massive, purely because I love to meet everybody, and I think that's what this is about. So I kind of think that it's a slog. It gets really tiring. You have sleepless nights thinking, "Oh my God, we're going to lose money," but we never do because of the generosity of people. But be open and honest with what you can afford, what it's all about. But look after the bands as well. Say thank you to them. Make sure that they get thanked. Make sure they get the best sound. Make sure that they get looked after and feel special. Because I'm very, very privileged. Without the bands, we're nothing, and I think people got to realise that. And without bands' generosity, we're nothing. And we pay it back because we can help. We plough so much back into an industry, I think, which is it's quite backbitey. I think, and I think as you said, that there are a lot of people out there who will rip bands off, young bands and everything, who are quite naive, promise them the world. Don't just be open and honest with the bands you've got. Give them plenty of time, give them plenty of warning about the times they're on, and giving people one thing which I think a lot of promoters do is although we have loads of bands there, everybody's got a decent length set. Because I
Yeah,
think, especially when we're asking people to come from God knows when and they get 25 minutes, it's not fair. And I think you can expand, 45, 50 minutes. I think maybe this year might be 55 for some bands, an hour. And I think that bands will appreciate that as well. And I think that you can kind of showcase yourself to those audiences. So don't try to cram too many bands in, because there's always going to be an issue. I mean, this year, I don't know if it was just before you were there, the electric went in the place
oh
and
yeah,
what have
no,
you.
I think I remember you talk. Yeah,
Oh my God, it was a nightmare, wasn't it? There's so many wires in that place. But you know, we overcame that because we had contingency plans, and I don't like overlaps, because it's not fair, is it? Because people shuffle around, and just give your audience the best possible day they can have and value them as well. That's what I would say. Don't treat them as commodities, don't treat them as idiots, and value them coming through your door, and say thank you to them, because if they enjoy it, they're going to come back. If they come back, you're building a little community. And as I put all on our t-shirts and stuff, this is rock and roll saving lives, and we can't get any better than that. Having a good time, having a good laugh, and I'm the first person there. I'm loud and I'm smiling and I'm happy because I'm joyous to hear amazing bands, and this year's going to blow everyone away. But I also like seeing the smile on people's faces, and that's what you got to do. Don't treat them as mugs, and savor the day, enjoy it, and then start planning as soon as the last band walks off stage. Plan the next year.
yeah, momentum, just consistency, momentum,
So, mate, yeah,
and so also you got within A to B parameters. You've got to behave as well. Just the reason why I'm saying that is because it's not just the festival or however big it is, or small it is. The promoter valuing the bands, the promoter, the event valuing the people who basically paid to come and see the bands, is
yeah.
bands being courteous. And this is just something I've learned just being in loads of different bands, is being thankful to all the backstage crew, basically everyone
Hmm.
involved, lugging your gear on and off, those who are bringing you a bottle of water. Literally, it's like basically saying thank you to the people who clean the bloody pickup
Yeah,
litter. Because if you remember them on your way up, they're going to remember you. Because the thing is, if you don't treat those sort of people well, they'll
yeah,
remember you on the way down. And I think you've
of
got
course they
to
will. Yeah,
You know,
that's
it's
a lovely
basically
way of thinking about it, mate.
a festival, you know, including the festival, the bands, everything, every element, you know, every cog that puts a festival together, everyone is key. You know, if one cog starts to rust or split or whatever, that
Mm.
whole thing's that's not fuck. But you know what I mean. You need
Yeah,
everything to sort of keep like a football team. You know, you need everyone to work together to make it happen.
yeah, you
And
do.
if you've got one bad egg, that's you know, it was always the whole bad news travels faster than good news. It's
Yeah,
and the
yeah,
thing
it
is,
does.
even like bands you support, you never know. You're at this level, they're at that level. They'll remember you. Especially, it's like the whole thing of being on time, changeover. It's like when we went on tour with Phil Campbell. I think we played the no Rescue Rooms in Nottingham, and
Right.
like, it's the first time in Nottingham. And anyway, I think we had 5 minutes. I don't know. We joke. We said it was about a 3 minute sound check, and literally we've never got set up that quick and pretty much done and dusted, more or less, and
Yeah,
ready to go. It's in that time, it was like almost like a flash, and it was gone. And
sure.
the thing is, we got on there. Like Florence Black were the main support, really good
Yeah,
band, really good guys. And we got on there on time, got off on time, everything. It's just the thing. You've just small things like that because if you
yeah.
start to overrun or you're being cocky, you're being wankers or whatever, they're gonna
Yeah,
bloody be like, "Oh, not having those again." So it's kind of you got to be thankful to everyone
yeah,
because you never know
yeah.
who's watching and who's listening, and
And also supporting the other bands on there
you got to,
because we
yeah,
don't have that. We're really. I always amaze when people go, and it's only another. I know that people travel around a lot, but it's quite nice to, especially when there's not many people around. And we know, like on festivals, the first few bands, there's not many people around. But what's happened at Savfest? People come along and they support each other there, and they get to know it. It's a bit of networking, actually, to be fair, because you
you
say,
got to
okay,
network, yeah.
and then before you know it, you're thinking, "Oh right, these three bands who were on a Savfest." I was thinking of Empire, who were just extraordinarily good. And then when they did their last tour, there were two other bands who they met at Savfest. So that's kind of what it's all about, isn't it? It's about networking. Because it's hard out there getting the people you trust and really, working together. And I remember we had. Oh God, well, the Scarlet Rebels, right? A
Yeah,
band, a band were late, and so they were just kind of having a bit of dinner or something. And I said, "Can you go on early?" He said, "When do you want us on?" I said, "Next." Yeah, okay. And they did it, and I'll be forever thankful because they said this. We aren't as big as this cause, and we don't want it to go wrong. And I've never forgotten that. So that's when I went and bought T-shirts, bought all that type of stuff, did all that as a thank you because I'm very aware that people predominantly play for us for nothing. Um, but I think people get us and are thinking, well, there for the grace of God go I, or we do want to start looking. We just got taken on Morgan Devaney and God, I'm going to forget her name, Lucy from Square Wild as patrons, and possibly someone in your band soon, and to help people in the music industry because I'm very aware that creative people sometimes it can be it's a fine line between success and failure and feeling good and feeling bad. So we're plowing something back into the industry, which I love. I can remember fondly all my gigs. I can probably, I've probably been to about 1,000 gigs now. Signed, I've got another 2 tickets to see Springsteen in Stockholm today. So that's a
awesome.
week away over there. Oh, I love it. My main man, Stockholm. So Wendy hates, well, no, doesn't hate Springsteen. She doesn't want to go, so she'll be staying in the hotel, and I'll be going off. But I can remember what I was doing when I went to that gig or how I felt, and I really want people to. I really want young people to feel that excitement. So you were saying you were at uni and uni gigs, and then you go to see all these bands and Hammy Odeons and the electric ballrooms and all that, and how you come out and you're feeling euphoric. It takes you away from all that shit in life for those 2.5 hours. And that some of that is down to the promoters getting it right and making it safe. because that's one thing which bugs me at the moment. Safe for both male and female, and make it as good as you possibly can for the people who bothered to come out and put money into your jar, if you like, and value it. And I think that's the biggest thing I've always remembered. And I look at Nikko, and he always makes time for everybody, and he will talk to everybody, irrespective if he's late home or not. And even at the moment, he's remained gracious, because, as you know, that it's been in the press, he's had TIA strokes that I did.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
people then started to say, well, he's the same drummer. Well, he is 74,
yeah.
and he is probably one that, it's extraordinarily technical. So he slowed it down a little bit, and he didn't do his fills, but he's getting stronger. But he never kind of he never bit the hand that fed him, and he
Yeah,
stayed diplomatically quiet, and then just spoke to people. And I think people respect Nick. Purely because he's remained a gentleman, and it doesn't do any harm to do that. You don't want to
No,
back and what have you. And you guys were fantastic. We had brilliant conversations, and we had some great fun. And obviously, without going into details, we had
yeah.
some really important conversations there, and which is continued, which is fantastic. And so, it went without saying that we were going to ask you guys back, because not only are you fantastic musicians, and it's just brilliant. I love that sound. It's amazing. And what's that steel guitar thing on the
Pedal
is it
steel.
steel guitar, that thing which you
Pedal
do that?
steel.
That's the pedal steel. That's the most amazing instrument to me. And is it really hard to play?
Oh God! I mean, I
It's
don't know how
mad,
to
isn't it?
play. So, because he's basically, how I remember, so he's basically got foot pedals. I can't remember how
Yeah.
many, which obviously deal with pitching up or pitching down or pitching to this certain key. Because it's not like if you hit a guitar, it's in standard tuning or whatever. You can't strum a pedal steel like a guitar and it to be in tune. It's every
Yeah.
string. I can't remember how many is in its own sort of key. So you've got the
Yeah.
foot pedals, but you've also got 1, 2, maybe 3 knee levers, which you use in conjunction with the foot pedals to orchestrate a key, and obviously when you're sliding up and sliding down. So it's it is very complicated. I mean, you listen to a lot of American country music,
Yeah.
pedal steel, you'll hear it. It's like the steel guitar, originated in like Hawaii, basically. Kind of
Okay.
that's where it first started, the steel guitar, where effectively you imagine a steel guitar, rest it on your lap and playing it like that. And that's kind of how it evolved from like steel guitar
Wow.
to lap steel, which kind of lap steel literally have it on your lap. So we had a really good lap steel company with Duesenberg, great, and that's on a stand, and obviously that's more in standard tuning. It had some pitch pegs at the end where again you could bend them down and pitch them up. Sort of bend them up to kind of pitch down, or bend them down to pitch them up. Anyway, and obviously, the pedal steel is very complicated.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah, I was so fascinated by you guys, and actually, you can hit a good mean old drum, mate. You had a good drum sound on. I remember that day.
Do you know what? It was really good. Like, because I remember obviously watching, like, some other bands and stuff, and hearing. Because the thing is, like, you never know how it sounds out front when you're behind the pit or whatever. And it sounded really, really, really good. I can't remember the name of the bloke who did the sound.
He was a drummer, wasn't he? He was a drummer.
I think, and he was really nice.
Was.
He was a really good guy, knew what he was talking about, and he was really. It's funny. You are really at liberty to the sound guy, because I remember, like, you can be a great band if you've got a shit sound guy. It's kind of like not game over, but you are kind of.
Isn't it really? We had a Savfest. We did like a prog type one, right? And the guy there, he literally thought he must have been in Spinal Tap and turned everything up to ear splitting. But it was ridiculous. It was so loud, it really hurt, and he just disappeared. He didn't work at that venue again. But I felt so sorry for the bands there, because there was some subtle music in it, and it was so bloody loud, man. It was insane, and he just literally couldn't be bothered. But we pay a lot of money for those guys to come, and they're coming back next year with a generator as well, so we're not going to lose power and everything, some lights and all that and everything. But they loved it as well, and what they said, the bands were so kind, and so everyone was on time, because we do give you guys near enough 3/4 an hour to set up, which is quite unheard of, to get
Yeah.
that sound right. And he said everybody was so professional, so caring, got off on time, and then went to help other bands, because there's always going to be someone who forgets something. I mean, I don't know, we didn't have much this year, Ryan. The year before, we had people who remain nameless,
Yeah.
Nikko McBrain's son, Nicholas, who'd forgot his drum, forgot his snare, forgot his chair, his seat, and his cymbal stands. But apart from that, it was great, you know. I mean, so other people went and, you know, and it's always someone else's kit in it, and it's always a worry. But they just knew that he was very caring and what have you. So people kind of dived in and what have you. So yeah, I won't let him forget that. Bless him.
I'll tell you, never forget. They come in many iterations, but never forget one of these. We did this gig in Devon, Festival on the Hills. It was amazing. We were late, 8 into 20 minutes of our set.
Yeah.
And I was setting up my kit and everything like that, and I was like, "Oh, I need to, you know, the beaters on the kick drum pedal. I need to tighten up my tom stand." La la. I was like, "Oh," and I was like, "I don't have a drum key." The thing I did have was basically a drill bit, basically that goes into a drill, and it's basically the end of a drum key. So that little silver thing's a drum key, not a sex toy. It's a very small one anyway. And I literally didn't have one, and I had to ask, like, "Oh, has anyone got a drum key?" And I was hand tightening everything. I was like, "Oh, fucking hell!" Like, the drum key is such an important bit of kit. If you forget it, you kind of, you know, you still play. But I remember my tom stand was kind of on the basket. It was kind of, I can't remember. I think it was lent that way or that way. I can't remember. But I was like going around the kit, instead of like hitting the rack tom there, I was kind of like either hitting it from an angle, and it
Oh
felt like
God.
I was in kind of like Woodstock, like playing in this kind of hippie psychedelic band. I was thinking, fucking hell. But you know what? It was a great gig. The
Yeah.
guys loved us. It was all good. Water under the bridge. I was like, right, don't forget a drum key, and also don't forget a drum rug, you know, a drum mat, because not everywhere supplies one. And I've played gigs where they're like, "Oh yeah, it'd be fine. Don't need to bring a drum rug." Okay, or I've forgotten it, and it's wooden floor, and as much as like your kick drum pedal or the legs on your kick
Starts
drum's got
moving
spikes
about.
in it, just like literally, you end up playing after about one song. The drum kit is like in the next county, and it's just like I've had it where like one of the guitarists has had to like stick his leg on the front of my kick drum or sit on my drum to stop it moving.
Oh
You know,
my God.
so
I
yeah,
will
there's lots.
remember that next year, and I'm going to get one of them keys, because it'd be quite cool. I quite like I like having things dangling off my belt now, because I want to be a roadie. That's all I want. I want to do 1 2 1 2 and have a torch in my mouth and show the crack of my arse when my jeans are too small. That'd be my whole day. I might actually be your roadie next year.
I
I'm
think what you're
really
describing there is some kind of gimp, not a roadie, but okay.
obviously, I see I'm of the 1979 roadie era, so
Right.
I was probably quite right. Different now, a bit more technical now, mate. You know what I mean? They were all like 90 and hard nuts. Oh my God, brilliant days. When I kind of reminisce and thinking I saw Motörhead, my second ever gig with Saxon, and I can remember actually that's when Biff had his silver trousers, and at the
Yes.
front was like these Hell's Angel type lot. And they could see this guy coming on with his silver trousers, and you could just see him looking at each other, thinking. And he went to shake someone's hand, and they just got hold of his hand and wouldn't let him go. But oh my God, what an amazing! Oh my God, an amazing gig. And I remember then, because you know now, PA stacks aren't half the size they used to be. They used to be
No.
massive, man, about 45 foot high. And I remember a guy just stuck his head in the bass cab and just was like that with his head down in it for the whole of the gig. And it was really loud on that bomber tour. And at the end, he just slunk to the floor. I don't know whether or not he died or whatever, but I can imagine the sound was so massive. But nowadays it's brilliant, isn't it? Because you can get a smaller PA, which is probably louder but clearer, and I
Yeah.
think that's a good thing. So you still need to have a bit of, you still need to have your ears a bit whistly in the morning. Otherwise, I'm never going to put ear plugs in. But that's probably why my hearing's so bad. So yeah, good. I will get one of those. I'll make sure we've got a mat, and I'll make sure I've got a key, and I'll bring some of your kit on next time.
You
All right.
should get like, I don't know, find someone you might like because it's metal, and get someone to either do like an Allen key. That's good.
An Allen key, that's
There
good,
we
man.
go. Have your name engraved in it. You know, Allen Key or whatever.
Allen's
Allen's
key, yes.
Key.
Oh my God, I've got a new, I've got a new purpose in life.
I don't know why, but it's Alan's Key. Just for some reason, when I mentioned that, obviously your name's Alan, I had a guinea pig called Alan, but like I always say, like, you know, I'm older than my years. Like, you know, I love all the old comedies, like not even the Fast Show, going before that, like Hancock and bloody
Yeah.
Yes Menace, all that stuff. It wasn't even my dad who got me into Alan Partridge. I can't remember who it was, but Steve, you know, I just find
Cougar was
Alan Partridge
brilliant.
absolutely hilarious. Even like Faulty Towers, it's so dated. But it's the comedy I was trying to think of the other day. It's not One Foot in the Grave. It's black and white, and I can't remember the name of the character. It's not bloody Leonard Rossiter, Reginald Perrin, glasses, and he'd always go on about the Jews. And I can't remember his name.
Till death us do part.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I found that I find it quite funny. I mean, you don't like, especially like they say the carry-ons. You know, you can't say a lot of those things like now. You know, everything's a bit
They
too
were
PC
quite
in my
innocent.
opinion. But yeah, all the old stuff like Leonard Rossiter, Reginald Perrin, Rigsby. That was very, very racist. You put that in modern context now. You know,
You can't. You can't. I know. And when you look at it, it was. You could say it's innocent, but I don't know how they got away with it. You know,
well,
Mrs.
yeah.
Slocum on Are You Being Served? Talking
Oh
about
God, yeah,
pussy
you could
and
do
all
those
that. You
jokes.
wouldn't have it
I
now.
know.
You'd be thrown in the tower, really. And it's good that, you know, I was quite lucky in that because I grew up with all that type of stuff, and we grew up when we only had like ITV and
Yeah.
BBC 1 and 2, I guess. But everybody watched those comedies. Everybody did, and the goodies and stuff. You look at the goodies now; it's so mad, and Monty Python. Some of that is so weird. It's brilliant. I don't think young people would get it
It's
myself, but
actually
I'm nearly 59, so you know I'm kind of
Monty Python, that sort of thing. And I look back at some of it, and it's kind of in some of the comedies, like, you know, Life of Brian or whatever. There's some things that happen in that where it's almost like you kind of think now, you think they've almost kind of predicted the future or
yeah.
what's going on now. But you know,
Well, it's interesting to see that Cleese said that he wasn't going to cut scenes out because they wanted him to cut some scenes
I
out of Life of
know.
Brian. He said, "I ain't doing it,"
Because I just,
because it is very much of its era, isn't it? You know, I suppose the nearest you could got to it. You know, I quite like Borat and all that type of stuff.
all
I
right,
just think
yeah.
it's brilliant, really. You know, but I mean, and he really did push it a little bit, especially
Mm.
when he was in America. I thought he was going to get lynched. You know,
I
but I mean,
know.
oh my God, you know, I could reminisce all day about all that type of stuff. I kind of miss those kind of shows. I don't find many comedy very good anymore. I tend to like stuff like Have I Got News for You and all those. I still
But
find that those.
The Angus Dayton era, that was the best. I
Yeah,
think.
it was, mate.
You
Yeah,
know.
he was brilliant at it, wasn't he? And then it all went wrong for him a little bit. But I mean, what's the something way out with that comedian on it. That's quite good. But yeah, those good old days, mate. Those good old days. They soon go. It's interesting. You know, I can remember being 18 and I'm now nearly 59. And I was thinking, you know, all those type of things you aspired to, and you think, oh, you know, before I'm 45, I'm going to do it. I haven't done some of those things. So, you know, when you look back at all those times, those innocent times when you have your hopes and dreams, just try and go for it. That's what I would say to people.
Yeah, you
Because
got
you
one
won't
shot.
yeah, we're not here long. And Springsteen talks about that very openly on his live shows now, that, you know, he's of an age where he's looking back and thinking all those sort of songs he did from early 70s and all that, you know,
Mm.
about all these aspirations, I'm going to take on the world. I suppose he has in respects, but now he's looking at it
Yeah.
and thinking, you know, there ain't going to be many of those full moons I'm going to see anymore. And it's quite sobering, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I'm not hurrying you to an end. I've got 3% battery, and if it dies, I haven't hit stop and to save the recording.
Okay.
So I'm
Well,
going to
we
say
need to shut
2%
up.
now. It's been a pleasure, Alan. I look forward to seeing you soon. All the best with everything. So if you need anything from me or the guys, give us a shout.